Hi guys, welcome back to Nairobi Legal Insights. In our video today we are going to be looking at reduction of salary. Basically, when can an employer be able to deduct an employee's salary, and that particular employer will be acting according to the law. Now, if you're a person who is new to Nairobi Legal, please consider subscribing so that you receive notifications each and every single time we post a new video. To a new member who has just subscribed to Nairobi Legal Insights, this video is a continuation of labor law in Kenya. I have previously done videos on what amounts to sexual harassment at the workplace, the issue of discrimination at the workplace, what are the rights of women during maternity leave, and the topic of child labor as far as the Employment Act of Kenya 2007 is concerned. Please refer back so that you get the background of where we started regarding labor law in Kenya. Now, for this particular video, I want us to understand whether there are certain circumstances under which an employer can actually deduct an employee's salary, and that employer will be acting within the law. Remember that an employee could misbehave at the workplace, and there are certain requirements or there are certain scenarios under which an employer can actually take a portion of an employee's salary, and that employer is going to be acting within the law. Now, this is the law I want us to understand today. As you can already see, we are going to be discussing about reduction of salary. When can your salary be reduced as an employee? And the employer is going to be following the rules set out under Section 19 of the Employment Act of Kenya 2007. Before we discuss circumstances under which an employer can make a reduction on an employee's salary and that employer will be acting within the law, I want us to begin by appreciating as labor law students that according to Section 17 of the Employment Act of Kenya 2007, an employer is actually obliged to pay the entire amount of wages earned by the employee. Remember that this payment is supposed to be done in respect of work that an employee has actually done. Every time an employee works, there has to be payment done in respect to that work. And this payment could be made in cash, it could be through money transferred into the employee's bank account, or even a check. The other thing you need to understand is that in the absence of an employee, this payment can also be made to a person other than that particular employee if this specific person has actually been duly authorized by the employee in writing to receive the wages on his or her behalf. Meaning that you can actually get a person, write an authorization letter that your employer will be actually paying your salary to that specific person in the event that you are away. The following are the circumstances under which an employer can deduct an employee's salary. One of them being that an employer's property can be destroyed, and this destruction could be occasioned by the willful default of the employee, meaning that you actually negligently destroy an employer's property. In this case, an employer can deduct a portion of your salary to compensate for the damage you've caused. Remember the key word here, you actually willfully make this a damage, meaning that should property be destroyed without your own negligence or without your own, it's not basically at your fault that the property has been destroyed, then in that specific circumstance your salary cannot be deducted. Number two, if you have been employed by an organization like Safaricom, let's say Anita is employed by Safaricom, and Anita actually leaves work for a week without a lawful cause, and she returns after that week to work. In this case, Safaricom is at liberty to deduct Anita's salary to compensate for that particular week that she left work without a lawful cause. The other thing is that Anita could be earning 20,000 per month, and by the end of that specific month she receives 100,000. Now you can already tell there is an error made in payment of Anita's salary, and for this particular excess portion of the salary, it can be deducted from Anita's salary, and the employer will be acting within the law because the overall objective here is to recover the excess money that has been paid to an employee. The other thing is that an employee could actually request his or her employer in writing to deduct a specific amount from his salary. Maybe that particular employee wants that specific amount to be given to a children's home. Remember, this money is not for the benefit of the employer, but maybe to a third party. In this case, the employer will start deducting a portion of that employee's salary and then again transfer it to that specific children's home. So if you want to understand circumstances under which an employer can deduct an employee's salary and that specific employer will be acting within the law, please read section 19 of the Employment Act of Kenya that outlines the different circumstances under which someone's salary can be reduced. Remember that if your salary has been reduced and it is not in accordance to section 19 of the Employment Act of Kenya, then in that case you can actually have a case against your employer for this reduction of salary. Having known that an employee's salary may be reduced as a result of the circumstances we've discussed under section 19 of the Employment Act of Kenya, next key point you need to take away from this video as a labor law student is that whatever happens, employees must take home at least a third of their salary, meaning that if someone left work without permission or without a lawful cause, or someone destroyed property that belongs to an employer as a result of their own negligence, and the employer wants to make a deduction on that specific employee's salary, this deduction at any one time must not exceed 2/3 of the employee's wages. And this takes you back to the first point, which was an employee must take home at least a third of their salary after deductions that might be made by an employer. And when this is done, it must be followed by a statement explaining the pay and what deductions have been made, why and how. So this statement is very important, and remember that as an employee, your salary can actually be reduced based on the circumstances we've discussed under section 19, and you need to always perform your work with due care and skill to avoid any of these circumstances happening to you. Once you know what falls under section 19, then you can be able to avoid such scenarios as far as work is concerned. And as a student of labor law, if you have a calculation to make as far as a payment and reduction of an employee's salary is concerned, bear in mind that at any one time, the employer cannot actually make a deduction that exceeds 2/3 of an employee's salary, meaning that by the end of the deduction, an employee must at least take home a third of their salary. Contrary to this becomes something that is unlawful, that it goes against the Employment Act of Kenya 2007. In our next video, we're going to be looking at the rights and duties of employees at the workplace. And for active engagement, please follow us on Twitter. And remember to subscribe to Nairobi Legal Insights. Thank you.